Hi, my name's Ella. My pronouns are she, her, and this is my channel Spectrum Stitcher, in which I talk about cross-stitch primarily. Before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that I am filming this Flosstube from Wathaurong country, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So this is my second Flosstube, and I just wanted to put a massive thank you out there to the overwhelming response that I've had. I don't want to sound like a cliche, but when I decided to film my first video, when I decided to start my Flosstube journey, I did that with the mindset of not thinking that anyone beyond my mum, maybe my partner, maybe my dad would watch it. But there's been much more people than that watching it, and a few people who have subscribed, which I'm absolutely delighted that you're interested in seeing what other videos I'll put out. And when I think about that amount of people in my lounge room, it's a slightly overwhelming prospect. But yeah, I'm so excited that you're all interested in learning about my stitching, with a bit of information about my experience of autism thrown in there, as well as a bit of info about my PhD research. That's the general idea at the moment for this channel going forward. I think, without trying to sound too self-interested, my general rule for what I will include in these videos are things that interest me. So crafting, in relation to crafting, things that I'm finding out about my autism and my PhD. And yeah, if that interests you, please keep watching. And thank you for all of the generous comments on here on YouTube, also on Instagram. My Instagram handle is below in the description, but it's at Ella Rose Vines. And also I had some wonderful comments on my Facebook as well. So yeah, just fantastic engagement. And I suppose I wanted to, that leads into something I wanted to talk about next, is what I've learned about my autism in the last fortnight since my first video. And that is that I have learned that the less I mask my autism, the happier I feel. So by that I mean, filming this Flosstube is the first time that I have, in a public forum, so beyond family and friends settings, but it's the first time I've appeared as my true self, with knowledge of my true self, which is a woman with ASD on the autism spectrum. And I have felt absolutely overjoyed since that video uploaded. I've felt really comfortable in my own skin, and that's even before I started receiving the positive feedback from my family, friends, and even more broadly to new connections I've now made through Flosstube. That positive feedback and acceptance of me as I am has only heightened what I already felt just by sharing, which is a sense of being comfortable in who I am, which is the first time I've felt that in my life. So thank you for those comments, and I'm so glad that this community exists and is a forum in which we can be ourselves and share our common interest together. So I just used the term masking. So what does that mean? And excuse me why I reach over, but I just said that, yeah, since the less I mask my autism, the happier I feel. And masking is a technical term, and I'm just going to read out a definition of masking from Dr. Tony Attwood. I'll link his website in the description below. I also linked a video in my previous Flosstube 1, which explains his research in relation to the way that autism presents in women and girls. But yeah, I found this definition really useful to understand what masking is, and I just want to read it aloud to you now so that you can broaden your knowledge as well. So, young children who have the characteristics of Asperger's syndrome, which is another way of saying high functioning autism, may be able to use constructive coping and adjustment strategies to camouflage their deficits in social interaction and communication. They may achieve social success by observing and imitating others, creating an alternative persona, or escaping into the world of imagination in solitary fantasy play, reading fiction, or being with animals rather than peers. These mechanisms may mask the characteristics of Asperger's syndrome for some time, such that the child tends to slip through the diagnostic net during the primary or elementary school years. However, there is a psychological cost that may become apparent only in adolescence. It is emotionally exhausting to be constantly observing and analysing social behaviour, trying not to make a social error or be perceived as different. Adopting an alternative persona can also lead to low self-esteem and confusion with self-identity. The subsequent stress, strain, and exhaustion can result in the development of a clinical depression. The clinical diagnosing or treating the mood disorder may subsequently identify the characteristics of Asperger's syndrome. So thanks for indulging me in me sharing that definition with you. But that's what I mean when I say the less I mask my autism, the happier I feel. The less I'm worried about hiding the characteristics that I have that are to do with my autism. The more comfortable I feel in my own skin, the less stressed, fatigued I feel. So I think me finding this forum and to appear with my true identity for the first time in my life, it makes sense that I've had this huge energy surge and huge lift to my well-being. And yeah, I hope that by sharing that with you, it may be useful to you. It might resonate with you if you're someone that's on the spectrum or identifies as on the spectrum. It might help you to understand a loved one better. Since I've realised that I'm autistic, I might have appeared to be behaving in a more characteristically autistic way, or been more autistic. And that's because I've been unmasking and exploring my identity as an autistic person. And you might be close to or in the presence of someone who is also doing that. So hopefully that gives you a bit more information about what masking is and the joy and the relief that can be felt by a person when they decide to unmask or are empowered to unmask. So I suppose thank you for watching videos in which I can be my true self and joining me in that. And yeah, as I said, I will link below Dr. Tony Atwood's website. I just read that definition directly off his website. If you'd like to read more, please do. So I had great feedback and support in relation to the information I shared about me being autistic. I also had great feedback in the comments in relation to my PhD topic. So a huge shout out to Catherine from Neat and Not by the Sea, who said that she found my PhD topic interesting, but also slightly confronting. So I think what I'd like to do is share each video a small snippet of something I've learned in my research. So just for those of you who may be watching my videos for the first time, I'm a PhD student and I'm researching, and I'm a lawyer. Sorry, I'm mumbling now. I'm a lawyer and a PhD student. So I am studying my PhD in law, and my topic is looking at, following the introduction of the Paris Agreement, are legal pathways emerging to phase or halt coal extraction and consumption. And I'm specifically focusing on Australia, but I just thought I would give you a bit of information as to why have I chosen coal. I mean, we know it's not the only thing that contributes to climate change, But I just want to give you a short amount of information and then about why I've chosen coal to focus on in my research, and then I'll jump into some stitching. So coal has significantly contributed to greenhouse gas emissions responsible for anthropogenic climate change. So man-caused, human-caused climate change. To mitigate the impacts of climate change, measures need to be taken to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that includes carbon dioxide emissions. Okay, so greenhouse gas emissions are made up of a number of gases, but one of them is carbon dioxide. Coal is the largest source of carbon dioxide emissions. It contributes 44% of energy-related global emissions annually. So, phasing out coal is therefore amongst the most effective ways to reduce carbon dioxide and broader greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, so that's a huge percentage, 44% of carbon dioxide emissions. And that's why I'm honing in on coal and trying to understand how the law can be part of ending its contribution to climate change. I should say I'm not a scientist, so any information I give is not, whilst I'm relying on the work of other scientists, I can't give scientific detail about that. But I am a lawyer, and so that's why my PhD springboards off these what the science says about coal's contribution to climate change, and then looks at what the law can do to respond to the impacts of climate change. So yeah, I hope you found that interesting. I'd like to keep sharing a small amount of what I've been learning in my research each video, and please let me know if you have any questions or comments or feedback about that in the comments below. So I also discovered recently an interesting intersection between cross-stitch, climate change activism and autism, and that is Ms. Greta Thunberg. So I discovered that she is not only the well-renowned climate activist that she is, but she is also on the autism spectrum. And she recently posted to Instagram what she does when she's sitting in on all of the Zoom meetings that she attends as part of her activism. So hopefully this... Now you will see in that reflection that I now have a ring light. I was treated by my lovely family to a ring light for Christmas, and so hopefully that will make my cross stitch easier to view. It will also mean that it will reflect in my Surface tablet when I show you things, but hopefully we can bear with. But here is Greta Thunberg, the climate change activist, the founder of School Strike for Climate. She is on the autism spectrum, and she likes to cross-stitch while she's, as a form of relaxation and to enhance her concentration when she's attending meetings. So I'll drop a link to her Instagram below. You can have a look for yourself. But I was delighted to find out that I have that in common with Greta. And it made me reflect on that there must be... Well, that led me to think that there might be a lot of other cross-stitches on the spectrum, or even cross-stitches that are interested in the environment on the spectrum. And actually, when I was going through my diagnostic process assessment with a specialist in relation to my autism, she said that I was sharing with her that cross-stitch is a special interest of mine, and she said that... explain cross-stitch to me, because a lot of my clients have mentioned that this week. So it was definitely the autism specialist's experience that a lot of the people that she's met on the spectrum are into cross-stitch. And yeah, I think it's quite common also. And, once again, it's a spectrum, so that means there's a lot of diversity within that spectrum. But I have... heard when I was having discussions with a specialist and in some of the reading that I've done that often some people on the spectrum have a very sharp sense of justice and injustice, so it can lead those people to have an interest in social justice and environment and big movements like that. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that tidbit. Hopefully Greta posts more cross-stitching posts soon. I'd love to see them. And I'm not sure she has time to be a Flosstuber, but wouldn't that be cool? She'd have a huge following, because she's pretty awesome. All right, so I just also wanted to touch on some other feedback that I'd got. I put a shout out in my first video, or a call out to the community to say, hey, I've come across some Southern Hemisphere Flosstubers, but if you know of more, please let me know. And Long Dog Stitcher recommended 2 fantastic Australian Flosstubers, who I've watched a few of their videos, and it's just been such a delight to find more Southern Hemisphere stitches to follow. The first one is Lisa Loves Stichin on YouTube, and Patchy Pony Stitcher. I'll put those names in the description box below. But yeah, go across and have a look at their videos. They're fantastic viewing, and yeah, it's such a delight to find more people in my neck of the woods. All right, so I think I've done enough chatting without showing you any stitching. So let me take a sip of my drink. I think I'm quite close to the camera this time, and if you'll probably see over the next few videos that I'll experiment with what setup works best, but I just didn't want you to get bored with the very limited backdrop options I have in my house. So I've used this fantastic fabric from Nani Iro. She's the designer. I can put that below as well. Hopefully I don't lose track of what I've got to put below. I'll just write myself a note. And yeah, I just thought I'd put that behind me for a bit of interest, but it's not the hugest bit of fabric, so to get it in the frame, I've come in a bit closer. Hopefully that's okay. But yeah, once again, I'm here to learn, so any feedback is welcome. So I wanted to show you a previous finish. So we've just had Christmas and we're in the new year, so Happy New Year. But before I pack my Christmas things away, I wanted to show you a finish that I had in the lead up to Christmas. Now I've finished the stitching, but it's not fully finished in its final form. And because I wanted to get it up with my Christmas display, I haven't, I prioritize that rather than getting it looking perfect. But that will be a task for next Christmas. Hopefully I don't forget. But so I wanted to do a advent calendar for my children. So I talked a bit about my own advent calendar last time with my flosses for each day of December, leading up to Christmas of December. And I'll show you the final flosses that I didn't show you last time, because last time I filmed on the 20th of December. So I've got 4 days of my floss advent calendar to show you. But I also did one for my children, and I put Lego minifigures in it. And the intention was that it would all be looking absolutely perfect. It wasn't, but I wanted to get what I could done for them by the 1st of December. So I stitched a fantastic piece by Barbara Anna called Christmas is Coming. And it actually inspired me to do an advent calendar for my children, because I think it perfectly encapsulates the feeling that children and some adults, no judgment here, have in the lead up to Christmas. And here it is. So it's this fantastic snail, Santa riding a snail, pulling a little city and some people in its wagon. Now I've literally just folded it and sat it inside this advent calendar, which is the brand Kaisercraft, and I ordered. It came flat packed. I completely ran out of energy and time to put it together myself, so asked my partner for help, who glued it together for me and assembled it. But my idea originally was that I would paint it, or maybe even decoupage the sides of it with all this beautiful paper, and then attach this stitching to some foam core board and place it in this cavity. A few problems arose, time, and the lack thereof, but also the fact that this stitching is just like millimeters too big for the cavity. But I do think that once I attach it to the foam core board, maybe then if I pin it to this wooden frame, and it would sit sort of slightly outside the cavity rather than inside it. I think there's still hope that it might work. But yeah, I'll take it out of the advent calendar so you can have a look. Hopefully it's not got too dusty in the last month, but you know. Here we go. So now you can have a better view of those little people. I just love it. It's a bit like the the finishes that I showed you in Flosstube number 1 last video, also by Barbara Anna, Christmas Hare and Santa's Flight, which was Santa riding a bird and Santa riding a hare. This pattern that I'm holding now, Christmas is Coming, actually kicked off my Santa riding unconventional animals obsession, and Barbara Anna has fantastic, plentiful, whimsical designs to offer in that regard. But I also loved that the colour palette wasn't traditional, yet it still speaks Christmas to me. And I also love the beautiful stars, the Quaker style stars in the sky. They're just really beautiful. And I was also really proud of my backstitching efforts. Backstitching is something that I'm not very confident in, and my previous attempts at it I thought had really brought the piece down, and I'd actually finished some pieces and decided not to do the backstitch because I thought that it ruined my piece, because I was proud of the stitching but not the cross stitching but not the backstitch. With this one, it was pretty hard to leave it out, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do it. And I did it, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. So it's given me some renewed confidence to try more backstitching. But yeah, it's also made me feel like I'm learning and I'm growing, which is just fantastic. So that's my previous finish to show you. I hope you like it. And because that was my kids' advent calendar, I thought I better show you the rest of my floss advent calendar. So I only have 4 days to show. Now, doing that advent calendar actually made me aware of diverging views out there about how many days an advent calendar should be. Excuse me while I just go to my Instagram so I can give you the floss in the right order. Bear with me. This is going to be very slow now. If it doesn't load, you'll just have to have out of order advent days, which you probably wouldn't know, but the order means something to me. I think we're going to have to go with the out of order approach. So what was I saying? Yes, I discovered that there are diverging views about how many days an advent calendar should run for. And if my grand's watching this, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I was certainly of the understanding that it was 24 days, and I think that's because as a kid we did 24 days, because Christmas, you're not counting down to Christmas on the 25th anymore, it is Christmas. And definitely the Kaisercraft Advent box kit that I just showed you that I put that cross stitch in, that came with 24 slots. Okay, so that company definitely agreed with me. And then when I ordered my floss from A Stitch in Time in Hobart and asked them to put together an order, a surprise order for me with my flosses for my advent calendar, I asked for 24 flosses, so that's what they sent. But then my mother bought a beautiful advent calendar to put the floss that I bought in, which I showed in my last video, so check that out if you'd like to see that. And that came with 25 little drawers. And so Mum thought it was hilarious and so did one of my brothers who was with her at the time, that I'd only ordered 24 floss. But I was definitely of the view, well, no, that the person who made that advent calendar was incorrect. There should only be 24 days. Not that correct or incorrect really matters when it comes to an advent calendar, but that's sort of the quite black and white way that my brain has a tendency to operate. Anyway, so I just thought, well, that's fine. I'll just not use the 25th drawer. And I started posting on Instagram about my advent calendar. And then on day 24, I had a few comments that were saying, oh, we can't wait for the big reveal on day 25. And I thought, oh no, I don't have anything to show for day 25 because that's not the way I do Advent. And I didn't want to let everyone down, but I thought, well, I'm going to have to let everyone down and just explain that's I do Advent a bit differently because I don't have anything else to show. But then Christmas Day came around and my mum and my partner each got me Stitchy related gifts, which then made for a wonderful big reveal that was also a surprise to me for the 25th of December. So yeah, those who operate on the idea of an Advent going for 25 and not 24 days were definitely got their big reveal when I posted it to Instagram. But yeah, I got some absolutely delightful gifts, which I will show you shortly. But first of all, I will show you the remaining 4 days that I had in my Floss Advent calendar. And to be honest, I think I can even remember the order that they came in. So day 21 was this Soie d'Oger more silk, which it's just this beautiful silver colour. It is absolutely divine. It's sort of a slightly darker and more iridescent shade of the background fabric in that Nunny Iro design there. For those interested, it is number 3841. Then there was some more DMC Etoile on day 22. There you go, the sparkles are coming up quite well. And that was shade C814. Then there was even more DMC Etoile for day 23. This one's not sparkling as nicely for us in the camera. I don't think I've improved much with getting things to focus between videos, but that's okay. This is shade C738. And then the final day on day 24 was some more Soie d'Oger silk in this absolutely gorgeous teal shade. And that is number 5386. So that was my wonderful Floss Advent calendar, which I enjoyed so much. And I'm definitely keen to do again next year, or at least have some form of Stitchy related box. But I like that the threads can fit in the little drawers in the Advent calendar that Mum gave me. So I think if I did patterns or anything, it would A, be more expensive, but B, it wouldn't fit so nicely in the drawers. So I'm tempted to do threads again, and you know, I'm sure the threads will all be put to good use. I'm still thinking about what I want to do with the threads that I got in the Advent calendar, particularly the beautiful silks. I've been thinking about some monochromatic samplers to do, but if anyone has any suggestions of fantastic monochromatic patterns, please let me know down below in the comments. One I was thinking was the Zimmerman coverlet, by Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery. I saw Erin, the 2 Martini Stitcher, she's stitching hers in Gloriana silk. And one of the days of my Advent calendar, I got the shade Schoolhouse Red from Gloriana silk. I'm not sure I have enough to complete the whole coverlet, so I'd have to look into that, but I thought that would be a really special way to use that Gloriana silk. But yeah, if you know of any monochromatic patterns, particularly smaller ones that use maybe only one skein of floss, that would be fantastic. I'd love to hear, so please let me know in the comments. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. So I've just realised that the big reveal for day 25 is not next to me in my pile of things I want to show you today. So I'm going to stop this video and then start again. I'll go get them and start again. Okay, so here's there's going to be lots of crinkling and rustling noises warning for those of you who don't like those sounds or are using earphones and that might be overwhelming. mute me or skip ahead through this section. But for those of you who enjoy ASMR noises, you're going to love this bit. But here was the massive big reveal. It's a huge box for day 25 that I got for Christmas. So this was from my mum. And when I opened it, I could smell that it smelled like old things. And it's that beautiful smell that, say, an old fabric-covered book or cloth-bound book has. It's dusty but not musty, but just that beautiful antique smell. And I got really excited at that smell instantly because I thought, oh yes, Mum's got me something old. So this will also be the Save the Stitches portion of today as well, because yeah, Mum picked me up some antique doilies that I want to show you now. First of all, they came in this wonderful doily cover or doily storage device. That's probably not the right word, but it's like a sandwich, right? It's got two bits of wood, and it's tied together. So I thought that was really cool. And yeah, she got me a whole stack of doilies. And it was funny actually, because when I went to Wonthaggi in November and said that I'd come home with some doilies, Mum was like, "Oh no, don't start collecting doilies." She thought that, you know, she knows that I have a habit of collecting things, and she's a bit of a collector herself, but she thought that my house would end up full of doilies. And but then when I showed her the doilies that I got, which have a look at my last Flosstube video for the couple of doilies I picked up in Wonthaggi in Victoria, she thought, oh no, actually they're actually really beautiful, and she's excited to see what I'll do with them. I haven't decided whether I will just use them as doilies or whether I will use them to stitch together to create something else. There's lots of amazing ideas out there. I did see Amanda May from Ardith Design. She used quite a few doilies on a shelf to put under her bird wall display. So she had a shelf mounted on the wall, put doilies on the shelf and had them hanging down with the beautiful stitched motifs on those, and then placed the bird cross stitches she'd completed on top, and that looked really beautiful. But for now, I'm just enjoying appreciating the beautiful needlework that someone else has done. The fact that, you know, I've collected them and I will appreciate and adore them, and yeah, I haven't decided what I'll do with them yet. But here is the first one. And I've had a bit of a flip through these, but you know, in the hustle and bustle of Christmas Day, I didn't really have a quiet moment to go through these in detail, so I'll be discovering these with you in detail today, and I'm delighted to have an opportunity to be in love with these as I show them to you. I love how intricate those florals are. Here is number 2. I've got to make sure I'm showing you the right side, but the problem with some needlework is that it is so neat that sometimes it's difficult to tell what side is the front and what side is the back. So hopefully I don't muck that up. You can certainly tell the front and the back in mine, and I'm proud of that. But yeah, I love the subtle oranges, yellows in this gorgeous design. And also the lace around the edges of these, there's a lot of variety in that as well. I suppose my eye goes straight to the stitching on the main body of the doily, but the edging is just, you know, someone's done that by hand, and it's just beautiful. Here's the next one. And as I'm looking at these, I'm trying to imagine the person who has so lovingly and detailedly stitched these, and wonder what their life was like and where they lived and where they used these doilies. This one's cool. I'm just having trouble finding which is the front and the back. A bit more sort of modern with a palm tree. Very cute. hopefully you like doilies because you're going to see a few. Mum bought me a whole batch of them. I love that. I love the blue flowers there. I really love blue flowers because there just aren't many of them. There's a lot more flowers that are pink or white or purple, but not so many that are blue. So one of my favourite flowers are delphiniums. And even though this is quite stylised, I imagine that could be a stylised delphinium. And then the most electric blue, some of the varieties of delphiniums. Look them up if you're not aware of them. This one's cute. Here's another one. I love the sort of bright pastel combinations in these. And I like that they're that the doilies tend to be symmetrical. That's very pleasing to me as well. That there's a repeat design on it. This is gorgeous. I love the blanket stitch, I think it is, around that leaf. This makes me want to try or to do some more embroidery. I must say I'm intimidated by the lack of, because with cross stitch you've got, and because I've only stitched on Ada in particular, you've got your very, your stitch size is uniform because of the squares of the Ada, and I imagine it's similar with linen and also even weave because you're using an even weave fabric. But with embroidery, it's a bit more freeform, and that intimidates me in terms of making sure my work looks neat and pleasing to me. But I know that there's only one way to get good at embroidery, and that's to start and to keep practicing. So I'm keen to give it more of a go. I think I showed you the little panda embroidery I'd started for one of my children in my last video. But yeah, I've got some more embroidery plans in mind. Yeah, and I'm keen to show you that as I discover it, which is the right side on this one. This one's gorgeous. I love that combination of tan, so that coral and the peach. That's so pretty. I wonder what vases may have sit on top of these. This one's really bright and cheerful that I'm about to show you, and the embroidery is quite intricate, particularly on that pink flower. Look how gorgeous that is. Oh, that's so beautiful. Then there are some doilies without embroidery on them, but that are just still absolutely gorgeous. It's my understanding that perhaps this technique is called tatting, but if anyone knows anything else about it, please let me know. I'd love to know. This one's very plain, but just as beautiful. Sometimes this is a good reminder to me that sometimes simple things can be just as gorgeous as bright and colourful things. Having said that, part of me is tempted to do some stitching on this. Hopefully the original owner of it would not mind. But you know, repurposing things so that they will be used is, it's great. Here's another more plain but just as beautiful one. 2 more to go. I like this one. It's sort of star-shaped with a hexagon in the middle. I really love hexagons. Here's the final one. Some beautiful stylized, or a beautiful stylized basket, and some beautiful sort of peachy blooms. So that was just a treasure trove to receive from Christmas for my mum, from my mum, and it made me feel very seen because, you know, she'd listen to me swoon over the doilies that I'd managed to pick up in Wonthaggi, and then gone and bought me a beautiful treasure trove of doilies of my own for Christmas. And yeah, I loved that she bought me something old for Christmas, so in this beautiful cover to keep them safe. but that wasn't the only antiques she picked me up for Christmas. So before the doily craze took over my brain and became something that I was talking about all the time, I found spools, and I'd heard about them through the cross-stitch community. A few other Flosstubers had shown spools and how they've used them to display their finished cross-stitch pieces. One person that comes to mind that's done some fantastic finishes of cross-stitch on spools is Mommalovesyougb on Flosstube and Instagram, so go and check her out. But yes, I started, and then I went on a trip to Castlemaine in Victoria and went to an antique place there and found some antique spools, and there was a whole basket of them, which in retrospect, I wish I'd bought the whole basket of them, but I was disciplined on that day and chose myself two. And there's such great things of beauty. I don't have them with me now to show you, but if you're interested, let me know and I will show them to you next time. And yeah, talked about that heaps with my mum. You know, I think when I was telling her about it, I might have said the word spool 10 times in the one sentence. And yeah, I've been keeping my eye on trying to get some more spools in antique shops and online. And we'll keep doing so, keep collecting. But yeah, Mum picked me up a batch lot of spools on eBay for Christmas. So here they are. If you didn't know what a spool is, you now do. And, you know, I think sometimes when you think of spool, you think of the small cotton reel spools. But these were used in machinery in the weaving mills. I don't know heaps about them, but that's my basic understanding of them. And you can see where they fitted into the machine. And a lot of them have these beautiful bright paint, which are, I think, some form of colour coding that the factory would have used. Here's another one. So this one's got black paint. Although it looks like it used to have blue paint either underneath or on top, perhaps underneath. So they're big. And so my intention is to, for example, get two spools that are the same length and do a cross-stitched piece that is then used like a scroll. So potentially some of Barbara Anna's sort of more storybook or comic strip sort of style pieces on Creative Poppy. I had started her, I think it was her 2020 Stitch Along Santa's Trips. But instead of doing it in a grid square, I'd started it in a just a long strip, and I was going to attach them to spools and have that be a really tactile object that my children and anyone visiting could have a look at Christmas, and maybe back it in velvet and have it be like some scrolls, and you know, the story unveils as you unscroll it. I still intend to do that. When I started stitching it though, I made a counting error and then I got cross with it and I put it away. But it's probably about time that I get that out again. And yeah, I'm probably a bit Christmas stitched out right now, but yeah, I would like to have that for next Christmas. So maybe that will be a Christmas goal for 2022, which we now find ourselves in. So here's some more spools. They'd also be good to hang a hanging cross stitch from, like in the style of the people use maybe bell pulls for. This one's got some gorgeous blue paint on it. But wait, there's more. That's the thing about my mum. She's quite generous. She sends to, she brought 9 watermelons to a party that I asked her, said that she didn't need to bring anything to, and she brought 9 whole watermelons. So she's done a watermelon with this, but I'm absolutely delighted, and these will be greatly treasured and appreciated. Some more beautiful yellow. I love that colour. To me, that just says happiness. I think this is the last one. Excuse the crinkle crinkle. This one's white. So I'm really looking forward to putting these to good use. Yeah, if any of you have any other ideas other than like a scroll or a bell pull to use those for, I have seen sort of wider spools used to wrap a small cross stitch piece around. I think the ones I just showed you are a bit skinny for that. Excuse me while I put this down. So that was from my mum. And then my partner not only brought me the ring light that you see, well, you don't see, but that is having great effect today. But also when we were in Wonthaggi and I picked up those doilies that I showed you last, Flosstube, he bought me and then tucked away for Christmas this absolutely adorable spool. It's matching quite well with my background. It's making me happy. So this one I'm not going to attach cross stitch to because the thread on it looks original and is absolutely gorgeous. But it's just going to be a wonderful piece to display along with my cross stitch treasures. So that was such a beautiful thing that he gave me. And so, yeah, I mentioned that he gave me the ring light. Mum also gave me a ring light. So Mum and my partner both bought me spools and ring lights. They didn't confer with each other, but I think what's beautiful about that is that they both know me so well, and they know me in quite an obscure or a detailed way. They know the very specific things that I'm into, and that made me feel really, really special. So yeah, that's my Save the Stitches segment / what I got for Christmas / the big reveal that I ended up having unexpectedly on the 25th of December for those people who do Advent from days 1 to 25 and not days 1 to 24. So excuse me leaning forward like that. I think maybe next time I might have to be a little bit further away, but I just confer with my list because, gee, I love my list. Okay. So I think we're now up to works in progress or whips. Finally, hey? So I first wanted to show you the way that I will be tracking my stitching in 2022. In previous years, I'd not tracked my stitching at all. But yeah, the idea of keeping a record really attracts me, as long as it doesn't become something that I get worried about maintaining. And I thought it might be useful from the perspective of Flosstube as well. I did see a meme out there saying don't spend all the money on the journals and the 2022 themed journals or diaries or planners, because we've been doing that for 2 years and the planners have gone out the window in terms of, due to the pandemic, who can make and keep plans anymore. So I did see that meme and I ignored that meme because I love beautiful stationery, and I feel organised when I have a hardcover physical diary rather than an electronic one. I find that electronic diaries, the days just don't, the things that I put in there don't stay in my head, whereas if I write them down, they're in indelible ink on my brain as well as in the diary. Which, when I was in an office setting, obviously my calendar there had to be electronic to fit in with the way the rest of the office was run. And that's fine, and I can do that. But when I went on a couple of stints of maternity leave and I tried to keep my calendar electronically, I'd forget everything. So I then picked myself up a hardcover diary, which once I became a PhD student, and I have quite limited electronic appointments, supervision meetings and things like that, I also started to go with a hardcover diary again, which felt like a great thrill that what I'm doing for a career at the moment is quite individual, and so I can have the system that suits my brain rather than trying to be a square peg in a round hole, which office environments sometimes feel like for me. So anyway, that's a long way of saying that I did pick myself up, in addition to my diary, which will keep me organised, a stitching journal. Now, this isn't formally a stitching journal. It's a 2022 monthly calendar notebook. But I just really loved it, and I thought it set up really well for stitching. So this is by Bespoke Letterpress. I'll zoom forward so you can see their name there. And they are a company in Australia, so they're in Bowral, New South Wales, and they use an antique press to make their products, and so I really like that. I'll put their website in the description box below if you want to check them out. But they do beautiful foil cards and and things like that. So here is what the month of January looks like. So I know a lot of Flosstubers are into decorating their stitchy journals with stickers. Because my page is already so heavily decorated, I think I may not, but who knows, we'll see what happens. And yeah, I've been able to fill in a couple of days because today, which I probably should have said at the start of the video, today is Monday the 3rd of January 2022. So I've filled in a couple of things. And in my last video, I listed some options that I was considering for my new year, new start. And asked anyone who was interested to leave a comment and vote for which one was their favourite in the comments. And I had one response from lovely Catherine at Neat and Not by the Sea, who voted for Otono, which I had in error said was an Italian word, but no, that's not correct. It's a Spanish word. So thank you so much for letting me know about that, Catherine. Yes, it's so good to learn in general, but also through this community, and it's wonderful the kind ways in which people gently let you know about things that you may not have known previously. So Otono is a Spanish word. It's a pattern by Satsuma Street, and that was my New Year, New Start, thanks to the lovely voting by Catherine, but also because I've been waiting to stitch this for years. And actually, I remember when I first became interested in cross stitch, and that was years before I actually picked up a needle and thread to try cross stitch. I found this design by Satsuma Street on Etsy, and I thought, no, I couldn't possibly get that pattern because I'm not going to be good enough to do that as a first go. And, you know, how wrong was I, and how many years did I spend not doing something that I should have just had a go at? But yeah, I thought, you know, I'm now a much more experienced cross stitcher. It actually took me a couple of years from when I had that thought to actually try cross stitch. But yeah, it's a lesson to me to try the thing, you know, give things a go, and don't not invest in supplies to give a craft a go just because I think I won't be good enough at it. This is supposed to be joyful and fun, and I deserve the supplies to try something even if it doesn't look perfect. So anyway, so it was a nice way. It was actually, I'm glad that design was the one that Catherine voted for, because it resonates with me as an idea of, you know, just try the thing that you want to try in 2022. So here is the pattern. Now we'll have to get used to this ring light. So it's Otono by Satsuma Street. And I will show you my start. Now I've got to move some tissue paper from the things I was showing you previously, so apologies for that. I will get it out. So the model stitch for Otono is stitched on a white linen, and I have seen some other finishes of it that are on other colours. For example, Noah at Noah Stitches, he did a fantastic one on like a sort of greeny caramel sort of mottled fabric. So I was tempted to see what other fabrics to give a try, but then I thought what I really liked about the pattern is that it's quite bold, and I thought that maybe sticking with the white like in the model might emphasize that fact. So I've started this on some white 14 count Ada. Got to try and think about what way up this goes. I think it goes this way. You'll see there's a needle in there because that's marking where I've got to do my next line. So I've just started on the border, which is in a variegated DMC floss. The whole pattern uses DMC, and I'll stitch it as called for and charted because Satsuma Street, Jodie at Satsuma Street is a colour theory genius. And yeah, I've just been working on the grid, which is really therapeutic. I like just putting on a movie and stitching some straight lines. So that's where I'm at with that. And then it occurred to me actually that in my last video I was showing you my Noel sampler, which is also by Satsuma Street, and that has a big red grid, and I discovered that I'd miscounted the grid. So for some reason that wasn't front of mind when I started this pattern Otono. Because I think if that was front of mind, I would have thought, oh no, there's a risk of me miscounting again, and do I want the frustration of making a mistake? So I'm glad that wasn't in mind. But then I must admit, once I'd started it, my partner had made the comment that I seemed to like these gridded patterns, and I was like, oh yeah, and I haven't actually succeeded in not miscounting one of them yet. So I have counted again. Having said that, I'm sure in a future video, or there's a high likelihood that I will show you that I've made a mistake on this grid. But I'm not backing myself to fail. I'm just trying to be realistic that mistakes can happen. But yeah, I'm going to risk it because I love that pattern so much. I can't wait to start stitching the motifs. I think as I showed you on the pattern, the first motif that will go in, or that I'll start stitching, is a beautiful apple in this corner. So the Otono is from a set of seasonal designs by Satsuma Street, and this one's the autumn one, and I intend to stitch all of them, but the autumn one is the one that calls to me most, so that's what I will do. Another thing that was in my New Year, New Start options that I also ended up starting, if I can find it. It's in this bag. Is the seasonal pincushions by Modern Folk Embroidery. I'll just make sure I got that name right. Yeah, that wasn't a pleasant view, was it? I'm not being unkind to myself. I just know that being zoomed in on anyone's face that much is probably a bit much. So I'll take that into consideration next time I set up my floss tubing station. I've just accidentally drawn on it with a highlighter. Bear with me a moment. Okay. So these are the 4 Seasons Japanese Pincushions by Modern Folk Embroidery. There you go. And I've completed, so they're designed as 4 separate pincushions, but I'm going to stitch them as one sampler all together. And I've stitched the Natsu, the summer portion. So I will show you that, and then I will show you my plans for where this will be displayed. So I'm stitching this on 18 count Ada from number 12 Stitch Co. I will just get the name of the dye, Russian Caramel. And I'm stitching this in DMC. And it was actually fun because the pattern as charted is stitched monochromatic, charted in a monochromatic blue colour, but I decided to choose my own colours to match where they will be displayed, which I'll show you in a moment. But I'm stitching this in DMC 310 and DMC 349. And they're displayed or stored on this thread keep with a rooster from number 12 Stitch Co, which I really think is really cute. I love birds, so that one jumped in my cart for that reason. So I chose those colours with some beautiful kokeshi dolls that I have in mind, because my mum, once again, my gorgeous, generous mum, bought me some kokeshi dolls, some antique kokeshi dolls for my birthday this year, and I display them as a group, and I would like, there's a piece of blank wall behind them, and I would like to put this sampler behind them on the wall. So I will show you some of the dolls. They're all sort of black and red, and the red is quite aged and faded due to the passage of time. So there's one of them. Here's another. I love the intricate design on that one. So yeah, Mum knows very well that I love collecting things, and this is something else that I've begun to collect. I just think they're so beautiful, and the fact that they're each individual and they've got their own individual expressions just makes me feel so happy. Like, it's so whimsical and cute. And I think, as I mentioned in my last Flosstube, I went on exchange to Japan when I was 15 for 5 months, and so yeah, I remember that time there very fondly in many respects. It was also a very challenging time. But yeah, I have a real affinity with Japanese culture, and I speak Japanese at the time fluently when I was there. It's probably a bit rusty now. This one's just beautiful. And I love that the red is faded in different areas and worn, and the black there too. So this one's beautiful. And I've got one more to show you. This gorgeous, gorgeous one with a more floral sort of motif. At least that looks like floral motif to me. So I thought that I've matched the, well, I got my DMC colour card and held it up to the dolls, which have, you know, because they're faded, have varying shades of red because of that. But I think I've done okay in terms of matching it. When I was looking at the DMC colour card, I was probably attracted to a less coral and more sort of deep red, but that didn't really match how the, there you go, I'll show you really closely, how the red on the Kokeshi dolls and how the red is sort of faded with time. So I tried to match it as closely as possible. And I'm quite proud of how I've done that. I think I'm happy with the results so far. And then it's also been really fun choosing what parts of the design and the pattern to make red and which to make black, because, as I said, the design's been charted in one colour. And so, yeah, and that's been an experiment in and of itself. And, yeah, I'm really happy with the results so far. So then I'm going to stitch the other 3 seasons. I'll stitch it in a grid, so one there, and one there. And I think that will look really sweet displayed behind my Kokeshi dolls. So that's what else, my other work in progress. I have one more to show, although it's a very small start, that I've been wanting to start for forever. But I decided last night, oh well, if I get it started, hopefully that will build some momentum, and then before I know it, I'll have it on my wall. And I've also been inspired to start because I've been really loving watching a whole lot of people's whip parades, work in progress parades, for those non-cross stitchers who may be watching this. Don't know why you're watching this if you're not into cross stitch, but no shade intended. But yeah, watching people's whip parades, I really enjoyed Annie the Joyfield Stitchers whip parade, Erin Two Martini Stitchers whip parade, Elizabeth Ann Ken Stitch's whip parade, and Michelle Bendy Stitchy's whip parade. I've got lots more saved in a playlist to my YouTube to keep watching, and I'm sure more will be recorded. And it's my favourite time of the year for cross stitching and Flosstube because I've just got lots of content to sit and stitch with. But I've been inspired by those whip parades to not be afraid of having too many whips. I probably have quite a lot of them already, and I'm blissfully unaware because I think if I knew the number, I might myself become overwhelmed. But yeah, knowing that there's lots of people out there with lots of works in progress has made me inspired to just not hold back from starting a few things that I've had the supplies kitted up for, ready to go. Another whip parade I've enjoyed was Emily C's, and she's doing 40 starts because she's turning 40 this year. I think that's fantastic. So anyway, I picked up Ink Circles After the Roses. I'll zoom in for you. And I just love the colour palette of this one and the floral design. But yes, this was very late last night that I started this. I'll just show you the flosses. They're not on a floss ring because I don't have enough of them for the amount of projects I've got started. And I might have to do something about that. Excuse me. But it's charted in Classic Colourworks. I won't show you the colours individually. I'll just hold them up and give you a general vibe of the idea of the palette. but beautiful greens and reds and pinks. So isn't that just the most divine colour palette? That just makes me feel so happy with those really peaceful greens and those pops of red. So I'm also stitching this on number 12 Stitch Co linen, if I can find where I've put the piece. Okay, I've mislaid it in my lap. Here we go. Is that it there? Yeah. So it's 18 count Ada from number 12 Stitch Co in the shade Autumn Beach. And one of my children actually helped me choose this shade. Now it's very different from the called for. The called for is sort of much paler. The called for is, I'll just see, Sand from Picture This Plus. So this colour that I've chosen is a lot deeper. But I actually put some of the fabrics that I have in stash out on my bed and held the floss up to them, and so did a floss toss, and then asked one of my children to help me, and they've got a really good sense of colour, and I think they were right. I agreed with them when they showed me this. Now you will see there's some dangling threads, but I'm just parking some threads that I've got to keep using. But this is my very small start. Hopefully that's not too blurry. But I'm loving the colours already. So yeah, that's After the Roses by Ink Circles. And I think they've got another pattern called maybe A Rose by Any Other Name. I'm not sure if I've remembered that correctly, but just folding some things away so I don't get in too much of a mess. I think that's what the name of that chart is, and I think it's a lovely companion piece, so I'd like to also stitch that one, but have a look at that one if you like. While I'm at it, I thought I'd show you what I'm using to store my stitching in. And I know a lot of people either sew their own or buy purpose-made project bags, and I would love to jump on that train, but haven't quite done that yet. Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch has a wonderful tutorial about how to make project bags, which I haven't been brave enough to try yet, but in accordance with my New Year's resolution, I should just jump in and give it a go. But I also haven't bought any. They are quite expensive, and I think most of the time I'd prefer to put my money into supplies for projects. But I'm sure it's only a matter of time before I treat myself to one. But in the interim, what I've been using is predominantly, I tend to buy calico plain pencil cases, which you can buy in packets from Spotlight, which, if there are any international viewers, that's our Michael's or Joanne's equivalent. And then I get iron-on transfers to, jazz them up a bit. So I've got a whole lot of Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie, May Gibbs, iron-on transfers on calico pencil cases as project bags. I don't have one in front of me now, but you will see them in future videos. I also hit up the pencil case stationery part of Kmart, which is a bit like Walmart, I suppose. I'm not sure what other jurisdictions, other countries have Kmart. And yeah, bought some pencil cases from there, which have made great project bags. And then another thing I do is often, if you buy bed linen, they come now in a cover that is the same fabric as the bed linen. And so I've found them to be really useful, because I don't tend to then store the bed linen in those once they've been used. So I just use them as project bags. So I bought a European pillowcase from this brand, and it came in this little pouch, which then I've repurposed as a project bag. And then here's one from one of my children's Doona covers. So I haven't made this. This is what when I purchased the Doona cover, what it came in. And I'm using that as a project bag. So I like that idea because, it's putting something to use that, yeah, I wasn't going to use for its original purpose, and I think they're cute. And then I also wanted to show another Christmas present I got from my partner's mum. this beautiful tote bag she picked up in regional Victoria that was handmade. I'm not sure the name of the person that made it, but this is a beautiful tote bag that I've been enjoying putting knitting and stitching in. It's got a beautiful green lining and a really useful interior pocket, and it's also got some beautiful vintage buttons on it. So I was absolutely delighted when she gave that to me, and yeah, she chose really well. I absolutely adore it. So that's my works in progress. So I'll just consult my list for a moment because that will keep me on track. So I thought I would just do a small bit of haul, not a lot to show this month, but I am part of the Threads in Time club through Stichin Time Hobart. And yeah, so I get monthly threads sent to me. I'm part of the the Classic Colourworks and the Gentle Arts clubs. So sorry, I should have done the warning, but for those who like ASMR crinkling sounds, here we go. So this is the December Floss Club from A Stitch in Time Hobart. Here are the Gentle Arts floss I got. I got grape fizz. It's just gorgeous. Look at that. I love how there's some lighter purple in there. I got geranium, which is that stereotypical corally red geranium colour, just gorgeous. So I think this club goes through alphabetically, so we must be up to G's this month. I got ginger snap, which looks very similar to a thread used in the fox that everyone's stitching at the moment. Maybe by Cottage Garden Samplings. I'm not sure if I've got the name right, but I'm very tempted to start that Year in the Woods stitch along. At first I thought, no, I can't do that because it seems to be very geared towards Northern Hemisphere sort of fauna and nature, which I have nothing against, but I just thought it, particularly stitching a fox in Australia, they're very much pests and do a lot of damage to our native wildlife. And I thought, ideologically, maybe I can't do that. But then I thought, well, a stitched fox on my wall really isn't doing any harm to the Australian environment. And I just think the pattern and foxes in general are quite beautiful. So I'm trying to think more flexibly about that and not have rules surrounding my cross stitching, because that pattern is just gorgeous, and I'm sure there will be many other beautiful designs in that Year in the Woods stitch along. I've seen the swans released as the second one, and they're just gorgeous. So I think I might be jumping on that bandwagon soon. Then this is Glass Slipper, which is just very well named because it's very much that colour that I associate with Cinderella in the Disney films Glass Slipper. That iridescent grey blue. Here's Gold Leaf, which is lovely autumnal gold to topaz colours. And here is Grape Arbor, which I think is just a lovely browny, rich plum purple. You can see that gorgeous variegation. I hope it's coming through to you, but there's that more browny tone and then the more purple tone. So that was the Gentle Arts Thread Club December 2021 from A Stitch in Time Hobart. And here is the Classic Colourworks Club for the same month. Crinkle, crinkle. So we're also going through alphabetically here. So we've got the end of the C into D, letters of the alphabet. And we've got this absolutely to die for red called Cupid. And look at that electric sort of red colour and then the deeper tone in that. I just can't get over that colour. So I'm looking forward to figuring out what to stitch with that. Then there's Dublin Bay, which is this beautiful sort of grey blue. It very much looks what I imagine a Dublin Bay to be like. Not that I would know, but if anyone from Dublin or has been to Dublin knows, let me know whether you think it's aptly named. Then we got Desert Mesquite. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but here we go. Might be another opportunity for me to learn how to pronounce things correctly. So happy for someone to tell me. This is beautiful grey green. Then Deep Fennel, which is funny. I don't really associate this colour with fennel, but I think it's a gorgeous colour nonetheless. It's sort of a very aquamarine sort of colour to me, this blue. Then Deep Blue Sea. I've got some beautiful blues this month. I think I'm not, this closer range is making it difficult for me to show you, but and then Dandelion Stem, which is just, it's almost like this has just been kissed by the dye. It's the palest of palest greens, like a white green, and I just love it. Hopefully you can see that. So they were the beautiful threads that I've added to my stash through the Thread Club in December. So I'll just move these out of the way. I'm going to have quite the cleanup to do after this, but that's okay. It's part of the fun. So I thought I'd just do a brief plans segment. So because I enjoyed... So first of all, I should say that the works in progress I showed you today, I intend to keep stitching on this month as the desire and the inclination takes me. But the other idea I had is that spurred on by the idea of how much I enjoyed my seasonal stitching around Christmas this year and how much I enjoyed displaying those items as part of my Christmas decor, I thought, well, I don't have any stitched pieces for Easter yet. And even though I don't have any finished stitched pieces, I do have lots of patterns. And so I thought, yep, I'd like to get some Easter patterns in progress. And then, so I started looking at the patterns I have in my stash, and then I realised, well, actually I did start one Easter project last year that I've partially finished and I would like to keep going with. And that is Oology. Now, I'm not sure how to pronounce that either, so please let me know, but I'll show you the pattern in a moment. But it's a Satsuma Street pattern, and it's 4 egg designs with birds in them in a beautiful colour palette, pastel. So here is the first bird that I stitched from that. I also saw Maple Stitches, who's also a new Flosstuber that you should go and have a look at and subscribe to. She'd done this one as well, and that reminded me that, hey, I've done that. So there are 3 other eggs to stitch, and I'm very much looking forward to doing the other 3. So I thought, and you can actually, and the pattern gives you instructions about how to finish them in that oval egg shape. So I'll just find where I put my surface and then show you the pattern. So here is the pattern. So I've done the bird with the apricot background and the blue bird, but there's 3 more to stitch. And I'd love to display them very similarly as shown there in that model stitch. So that's by Satsuma Street. And then another pattern that I own but I haven't kitted up that I saw on, perhaps it was 2 Martini Stitchers Whip Parade, and it was a pattern in the magazine which I received the digital copy of, called Punch, Needle and Primitive Stitcher, which I'm sure you've come across people rave about how amazing that magazine is before, but I echo that. I think because a lot of the patterns are of such quality that they end up being sold separately once the exclusivity term is up with the magazine, and so for the price of the magazine, it works out very well, even if you only stitch a couple of the patterns per each issue. So this is called Easter Hare by Barbara Anna. Oh. Try not to drop the thing. And I think it's just gorgeous. So I haven't got the supplies and kitted that up yet, but I would very much like to as part of my Easter stitching that I'd like to start shortly. And the other one, which I do have the supplies for, but I haven't yet started, is another Satsuma Street pattern, which you might be noticing a bit of a theme. A lot of my starts and whips and finishes are Satsuma Street or Barbara Anna. Seems to be the sort of phase that I'm in at the moment. And I just think it's because of the bright colours that they tend to use and the whimsical motifs. Excuse me while yeah, okay, here we go. So that is Sweet Spring by Satsuma Street. So I haven't yet stitched on linen. This one calls for I'm just trying to find, this calls for Weeks Dye Works linen called Seafoam. I haven't stitched on linen yet, and when I have got ambitions and plans to try stitching on linen, but when I was kitting this up, I didn't have that plan yet. And so I couldn't find anything in that sort of duck egg blue tone. So excuse I'm just opening a package here, but I did pick up some 14 count Ada, and I'm not sure what the shade is called. It doesn't seem to say on the packet, but it's one of those pre-cut Zweigart. Now it's reading very grey in this ring light, but it's more like a pale celery green. So I suppose you can see that in my background, the 90 Euro fabric I've got hung up there, that's grey. This is more green. It's a very pastel colour. And then I've got all of the called for DMC ready to go. Look at that beautiful pastel Easter deliciousness. So there's some of the things I'm contemplating starting and planning towards so that I can have some bright and beautiful Easter decor around me, just like I enjoyed for Christmas. So that's all I have to share with you today. If you like what you've seen, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe and hit that notification bell if you'd like to receive notifications when I post new videos. And yeah, I suppose I'll see you soon in my next video. And until then, I suppose let's just take each day one stitch at a time. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.